There are people in this world who speak rarely, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned to watch everything first. They sit quietly in rooms filled with noise. They listen while others talk. They observe details most people never notice. And they move through life like shadows, present, aware, but never demanding space. No one teaches them to be this way, yet somehow, they become the kind of person who silently studies life from the edges. Some call them mysterious. Others call them distant. But the truth is far more human, far more complicated, far more psychological. People who watch without speaking are not silent because they are empty inside. They are silent because they are full of emotions, full of thoughts, full of awareness that they don't always know how to express. They live deeply, but quietly, and their silence is not a flaw. It is a language. If you've ever been the quiet observer, the one who stays in the background, the one who watches the world happen, you know exactly what I mean. There's a strange comfort in invisibility, a peace in not being the center of attention, a sense of control in staying quiet. When you observe, you don't risk misunderstanding. When you observe, you don't risk revealing too much. When you observe, you hold the power of seeing without being seen. People rarely understand observers. They assume silence means shyness, or weakness, or insecurity. But deep psychology tells a different story. Many quiet watchers are not fragile, they are perceptive. They are the ones who notice the tremble in someone's voice before they cry. They catch micro-expressions others overlook. They sense emotional shifts in the room without a single word being spoken. They read body language like a second language. They are the natural analysts of human nature. They see everything not because they try to, but because their mind never stops paying attention. But this way of being doesn't come from nowhere. It is shaped by experience. Some observers became this way in childhood, growing up in environments where speaking too loudly led to conflict, or being too visible led to judgment. So they learned the art of watching, the art of reading a room, the art of staying safe by staying quiet. Others became observers because they were the sensitive ones, the ones who felt everything too intensely. And somewhere along the way, silence became a buffer between them and the world. It's not that they fear speaking. It's that speaking feels like exposure. Words feel like doors, and once they open them, they can't predict what will come out or how others will react. So they choose silence, not out of fear but out of precision. They speak only when they mean it. They speak only when something matters. They speak only when they have processed every angle in their mind. And until then, they watch. There is also another side to being an observer, the comfort of being invisible. Some people don't want to be known too deeply, not because they dislike connection, but because they don't trust it easily. There's a softness inside them, a tenderness that they protect. Being invisible feels safer than being misread. Watching feels safer than participating. And silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where the world can't touch them too deeply. But observers don't just watch people, they watch themselves too. They overanalyze their own reactions, their own feelings, their own presence. They replay conversations long after they're over. They dissect their own expressions, their own tone, their own choices. They watch the world, and then they watch themselves watching the world. It's a loop of self-awareness that never quite turns off. Psychologists often describe this internal state as hyper-awareness or internal monitoring. It's when you're not just living, you're observing yourself living. And people who watch without speaking often carry this trait like a quiet weight. They don't show it. They don't talk about it. But it shapes everything. And yet, beneath all of this, there is something else, something softer. A longing. Observers rarely admit this, but they long for connection as deeply as anyone else. They want to be understood. They want to be seen, but by the right person. They want someone who notices their quiet presence, who sees past the silence, who realizes that the person who says little often feels the most. The paradox of the silent observer is this. They don't want the spotlight, but they do want to matter. There's also the psychological comfort of watching from the sidelines. When you observe, you understand people better. And when you understand people, you can predict them. And when you can predict them, the world becomes less chaotic. Observation becomes control. Quiet becomes power. Not the loud kind, the grounded kind. The kind that says, I don't need to be seen to understand what's happening. This is why observers often notice things others miss. Hidden motives, subtle lies, unspoken tensions. They see the truth beneath the surface because they are patient enough to wait for it. They don't rush to interpret. They don't jump to conclusions. They watch. They wait. They read the patterns. And in a world that rewards speed, observers move with depth. But let's talk about the part that rarely gets spoken, the loneliness of being the quiet watcher. Not the dramatic kind of loneliness, the subtle kind. The kind where you sit with friends and feel like you're floating slightly outside the circle. The kind where you want to speak but the words don't shape themselves easily. The kind where people say, "You're so quiet," without realizing how heavy those 3 words can feel. Observers often feel like they are living behind a glass wall. They see everything clearly, but they don't feel fully part of it. And yet, something fascinating happens when observers finally speak. Their words carry weight. They hit deeper. They hold meaning, because they speak from thought, not impulse. They speak from insight, not habit. Their sentences come wrapped in understanding because they spent so much time watching before they formed them. And that is why people trust them, why people turn to them, why their opinions matter even if they speak only rarely. But to truly understand observers, you have to understand what silence means to them. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is processing. Silence is absorbing. Silence is noticing the things that others talk over. Silence is where insight is born. Some people fear silence. Observers live in it like a second home. Many observers also watch from the background because speaking feels like surrendering control. When you talk, you expose your thoughts to the world. When you stay silent, your thoughts remain yours. You stay in control of what others know, what they assume, what they interpret. Silence is sovereignty. And for people who have been misunderstood before, that sovereignty matters. But here's the deeper truth beneath all of this. People who watch without speaking possess an emotional world that runs deeper than most people realize. They feel intensely, but express quietly. They connect deeply, but cautiously. They love strongly, but silently. They are the kind of people who think before they speak, who sense before they act, who understand before they judge. And if you are one of them, if you've spent your whole life watching from the margins, you need to know something important. There is nothing wrong with you. Silence is not a flaw. Observation is not a weakness. You are not distant, or detached, or emotionless. You are simply tuned to a different frequency. Quieter one, a deeper one, a more perceptive one. And the world may not always notice people like you at first, but when they do, they never forget you. Because you don't flood rooms with noise, you fill them with presence. Calm presence, a thoughtful presence. A presence that feels steady and aware and grounded. A presence that speaks volumes without saying a word. People who watch without speaking are the mirrors of the world. The ones who reflect everything back. The ones who understand the unsaid. The ones who feel more than they show. And maybe that's the strange comfort of invisibility. You get to witness life without being consumed by it. You get to understand people without having to expose yourself completely. You get to exist quietly, but meaningfully. And maybe, just maybe, the world needs more people like that. Not louder people, not bolder people, but quieter people. People who listen, people who see, people who observe gently, thoughtfully, carefully. People who don't rush, who don't interrupt, who don't need to perform to feel real. Because sometimes the people who watch without speaking understand life more deeply than anyone else. And sometimes the person standing silently in the back of the room is the one who sees the truth most clearly. You're not invisible. You're just watching. And that is its own kind of power.